Hello everybody and welcome back. My name is Jenna and I'm the producer of the Roxborough House Roundtables at Jefferson East Falls. Each episode is recorded and later posted on our YouTube and SoundCloud for those who were not able to make it to the live event. They are also aired on the first and third Sundays of each month from 7 to 8 a.m. on G-Town Radio, 92.5 FM WGGT. Today's roundtable is hosted by Faith Eckley and she will be talking about the prisoner rehabilitation. Now I hand it over to Faith.
Hi, thank you everybody for listening in. Before we get started, I'm going to give a brief overview on why we're here today. So the United States has high mass incarceration rates. Since 1973, the U.S. prison population has climbed by 500%, and almost 2 million people are currently incarcerated in our nation's prisons and jails, which now makes the United States the sixth highest mass incarceration rate in the world. So because of these mass incarceration rates, it leads to heavy recidivism. And what we're seeing is that frequently people are released from prison and then entering the prison system again. The U.S.'s 5-year recidivism rate is around 68%, meaning that the majority of people released from prison are then rearrested and reincarnated within 5 years. And so the reason that we're seeing these high recidivism levels after these high amounts of mass incarceration since the 70s is that our justice system focuses primarily on punishment over rehabilitation. So when people are entering prisons, they're entering this environment where they are institutionalized and where they're not given the proper social skills, but also the skills needed just to survive in our modern society. And so when people are then released from prison, they're experiencing a difficult time readjusting to society. They're facing high levels of poverty, and they don't really get a chance to get out of that poverty because they lack the education and the skills needed to get a job. We also see that this cycle really affects just the whole communities and families as a whole. Children are affected when seeing their parents in and out of prison, and the cycle is really hard to break. And so the solution to break these high levels of recidivism and the high levels of mass incarceration is a need for prisoner rehabilitation.
Wow, those numbers are shocking. Have you done any research into rehabilitation processes that could help this?
Yes, so the reason that we are focusing on this today is because for my senior capstone project, I have been focusing on the need for prisoner rehabilitation and the types. And so one program that I really want to focus on is Dog's Prison Program, which is located here in Pennsylvania. My family actually adopted a dog from there a few months ago, which is why I was inspired to research this for my final senior project. The program essentially takes dogs, rescues them from high-kill shelters, and places them within the state prisons here in PA. They're then paired with an inmate. Those inmates are trained by dogs to become certified dog trainers, and then the dogs are paired with them. They live in the cell with them for 6 to 10 weeks. They follow them everywhere, including like the dining hall, the prison yard, and then once the dogs have completed their training with their inmate, they then get put up for adoption and can be adopted by families. And the cycle repeats where the inmate is then introduced to a new dog and basically is rehabbing the dog. And so the really interesting thing about this program is that not only are animals being helped, and it's a program to rescue animals, it's also a really great example of an innovative rehabilitation program for inmates. And so within this program, they're getting really good emotional regulation. They're learning essentially, when I spoke to Amy and Steve, who are the founders and the leaders of Dog's Prison Program, they said that one of the big things that they teach the inmates who are becoming dog trainers is that the emotion goes right down through the leash. So the prisoners have to learn how to control their emotions and their reactions and their behaviors because it then affects how their dog behaves and how their dog feels. And so it's teaching inmates emotional regulation, emotional stability. It's giving them an outlet for their mental health. They're getting that connection with somebody, being able to have a companion with them. And it's also giving them skills to be able to hold down a job, and it's giving them work experience. They now have skills in how to groom animals, train animals, take care of them. As well as Amy and Steve mentioned that the inmates are learning how to take accountability, how to make sure that their tasks are being completed on time, time management. They have to be able to work with the other people in the program and learn how to hold down this responsibility, which is really great for when they're released, or even while they're still in prison, to then have other opportunities.
How do the incarcerated people get connected with the dog's prison program? Like, what is the scale of the program? And like, does every inmate have the ability to like volunteer for this? Do you have to be selected? If once you have a dog, what's the likelihood that after those 10 weeks you get to have another one?
Amy and Steve and I didn't go into that too much, but from what I did learn from them, it is in a few, I would say like 3-ish state prisons in PA, and inmates do have to have some qualifications. They cannot be like, their offenses for why they're in prison have to be a certain level. So then that's how they kind of qualify, and then I believe that they can keep staying in the program as trainers as long as they are, you know, holding down their responsibilities correctly. So it is a good way for them to get involved, because there's not too many qualifications. And a lot of other prisons, more so out west, they do something similar, but it's with service dogs. But the problem with this that Steve and Amy told me, they started a dogs program around 10 years ago, and they already kind of knew that this was happening within prisons because of service dogs. But the thing with service dogs is that they can only be purebred dogs, like a lab or like a golden retriever, and a lot of the times, you know, the dogs have to have really specific certifications. The prisons themselves have to have a lot of certain things, and so the way that dogs runs is Amy and Steve said that they're basically rescuing dogs that would normally fall through the cracks. They're rescue dogs, but because they're basing the program on training rescue dogs, there's a bigger amount of dogs to then enter the program.
So it's surplus of dogs.
Yes.
There's millions of rescue dogs. That's crazy, yeah.
So so then they're able to match with more prisoners and then keep that cycle going of once a dog is adopted, that inmate or that trainer gets another dog.
Right, okay.
So.
And I guess the goal of the program would be to continuously grow and reach out to more prisons in PA.
Yes.
And they're all in PA?
Yes. And essentially, when talking to Amy and Steve, one of the big things is like advocating to get dogs program in other prisons. And the way they do that is they have to approach like the wardens of the prison officials, and they propose this program and show them the benefits.
Right.
And what it could do. So
you kind of have to like follow a story of like individuals and like how it worked out. So like you said that your family has adopted a dog. So like almost like treating those like success stories as like case studies of why it should continue and the program is helpful and beneficial.
Yes, that's really true. Actually, during my time speaking with Amy and Steve, I was able to do participant feedback. So I sent out a survey to a group of the inmates who are dog trainers in the program, and they sent the surveys back to me to get their feedback. So the average age of the survey was 49, the youngest was 35, and the oldest was 66, and the range of their sentences, their sentence lengths range from 9 years to life in prison. Just to give out some of their feedback, somebody said that giving back to the community, something positive after causing so much harm, has been very healing for them and has really been a good opportunity for personal growth. When asked, should inmates be allowed to explore their interests and skills while incarcerated, somebody said it keeps their minds going in positive directions. Somebody said that inmates need to have responsibilities that give them a sense of accomplishment. Somebody else said it's an excellent program that boosts the morale of both inmates and staff. Somebody said that the dogs have taught them tolerance and patience, and at first, if you don't succeed, try again. Another said that the program gives them hope. And another said that dogs show you unconditional love and bring you happiness. And then somebody said, when asked, what would you say to prison officials thinking about implementing a program such as dogs in a prison, what would you say? And this person said that the program teaches people to take care of something other than themselves and helps with staff-inmate relations, and it teaches skills for when an inmate is released. This one was, I think, a really big one to reflect on, is that somebody said that as a result of being a dog trainer and constantly being with the dogs, prison staff often treats the inmates as human beings opposed to as like a less than. And so reflecting on that feedback, it just goes to show that not only are the inmates involved in this rehabilitation program getting, the skills that they would need to get a job or the skills that they would need to continue doing these different programs while incarcerated, it's also giving them hope. It's helping with their mental health. It's helping with their own personal development and growth, which is really important.
Yeah, I think it's amazing to hear the positive feedback and the theme of hope throughout everybody's responses, but it makes me think the dogs being present in a prison must change the morale of everybody involved, even if it's not just the prisoner themselves. Since they were speaking about fellow inmates and the staff, the morale of everybody, I'm assuming, is changed due to the presence of a dog.
Yes, 100%. Multiple of the surveys that I got back, and then also Amy and Steve, while speaking to them, said that this program causes the environment of the whole prison to change because there's dogs there. They're regulating the emotions of the environment. It allows kind of people to break the ice. A lot of the times it's also good for inmates to have that sense of normalcy, and it's also good for them to break the ice with their families. We got feedback that when families come to visit or when they're on the phone with family members, they're able to talk about the dog and kind of
something you're proud of and you're excited
Yeah.
to talk about it. It's not this awkward,
Yes, and it kind of just brings them this sense of hope and that they're doing good. And then another interesting part of the program is that people can anonymously, when they adopt a dog from the program, can anonymously send back pictures and updates about the dog so that the trainers get to see, like, look how much good you've done for not only this family but the dog. Like the dog now, they'll get pictures of the dog at the beach, they'll get pictures of the dog going on their walks, and
That's incredible.
appreciation for thank you for training this dog. And so that was a really great part of the program.
Yeah,
to
especially
introduce hope.
because just like U.S. prisons in general are so like psychologically like bad for you. I don't know how to say that, but like just like the whole environment is just like not conducive of a positive psychological needs. So like having something to like make you happy and like having something to like look forward to every day, or just like even after you've gone through the program, like getting that contact and like seeing that you've done something and there's like something to look forward to. I don't know, something exciting. That's just incredible. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
I also think being able to receive photos of the dogs that you train and getting that information, it validates the hope that they feel, and it validates their hard work that they put into it, and they can see that they accomplished something good.
Yes, all those are really great points. And so that kind of takes us to what are the qualities and the goals of effective rehabilitation programs? Because with this project, I'm advocating that Dogs Prison Program should expand, and PA state prisons and other prisons should adopt this program. But also, what are some other innovative ways that we can introduce rehabilitation programs into prisons to hopefully eventually bring down those recidivism rates and reduce mass incarceration in the United States? And so there are two interesting approaches that a lot of programs can fall under, and this is from the International Association for Correctional and Forensic Psychology. So the first is like a community-oriented approach. And so basically prison officials would look at inmates and pair up cellmates and people in the same block based on their common goals. So if there is a group of prisoners who are interested in obtaining a certain vocational skill, they want to train to know how to become plumbers, they want to like get those vocational skills, they would then be living together in a cell, and it fosters that environment of personal growth. On top of that, peer support and leading facilitation groups within the prison facilities, and then work that creates positive community impact, which Dogs does very well, gives that sense of you're helping the community, and also interactions with community leaders and setting up peer support systems for inmates still incarcerated and those released, and connecting people so that they can help each other and talk about these hardships that they go through when released and unsure what to do, or while still in prison and not knowing how to handle those psychological factors, as you mentioned. And then the second approach is really for prison officials to begin to understand the employment needs of their states. And so looking at, first of all, what jobs are in demand? What educational and vocational training skills programs can we implement in these prisons that are going to be useful for when inmates get out? So what can we train them and educate them in so that when they get out, those skills are needed? So really looking at the job market and saying what's going on here, and also connecting with agencies that figure out what jobs, what businesses, what places are going to be willing to hire people with records and who were previously incarcerated. Because that's another big thing too, is that's a really big stigma that people face when they leave prison, that's on their record, and that creates another level of difficulty. So really just prison officials connecting with these different agencies. And then on top of education and vocational skills training, of course, addressing physical and mental health care, substance abuse recovery, and addressing behaviors and attitudes. And I think all of these qualities are really found within the DOGS program, which is why it's such a great example of an effective rehab program.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's like a special thing about the dogs program, just because everybody likes dogs. Like it just works out. Like I feel like you're more likely to get prison officials on board as the program's expanding throughout Pennsylvania. Just like you're more likely to get those people to agree to like test run this program within their facility, because like it's kind of like a fun idea. Like it's kind of just like, that's really cool. Yeah, okay, we'll put some dogs in there. Like, why not? Everyone, that's just like fun. But I think that's like the perfect way to like ease this idea of rehabilitation back into the prison system, because right now that's really lacking. Of like, it's like individuals who have whatever made mistakes trying to then regain their place in society and like still feel like a human being and a person that can contribute. And I think starting at the scale of like, obviously you can't all be dog trainers, but like starting with like having that impact, having that skill set, and even like I think it should absolutely expand to other types of certifications and trainings and ways that they can contribute to society once they are put back out there.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is so true. And I think as well, on top of those educational skills, it's like if you're spending that time incarcerated and you're getting that job experience, you're getting those skills, you're making connections with people, you know, such as Amy and Steve from DOGS program, like, but at the same time, you're also learning, you know, emotional regulation. You're learning how to work within a group. You're learning all of those other skills that are also going to translate to just basic everyday.
Right, you as a person.
Yes, you as a person. How am I, like, spending that time with that dog all the time, being able to develop your own personal growth as well. And so we're hoping that if we can start to implement these programs, we'll start to see recidivism rates begin to drop, and then overall mass incarceration begin to drop. And be able to help inmates when released adapt back to society. And not only that, we also have to consider that there are people who have life sentences and they're also involved in these programs. And, you know, maybe they're not getting these skills and these experiences because they're not going to get released, but, you know, they're still human beings with their own thoughts, emotions, and they're going through this, you know, while in prison.
So like, might as well give them the feeling that they impacted.
Yes.
They did something positive. They helped that one dog that one time.
And
like, that's great. I feel like that is like totally, like it shifts the mindset of someone. And not totally, because obviously we can all understand like the mental health of a prisoner at this point, because that's just like a totally different world. But just like having that one small thing, it's like, oh, I trained that dog and it wasn't a kill shelter, and now it can be adopted because it's like a regular dog. I don't know. Like that's motivating, I think.
Yes, and I think you brought up a really great point, because like we've addressed before, our justice system is really focused around punishment. And so that's the ultimate punishment, you're in prison for life. But now instead of focusing on punishment, and it's almost readjusting to, okay, you have caused harm, but now you're giving back. Now you're spending this time that you were sentenced to giving back to the community.
Yeah.
And it's adjusting maybe not only that person's mindset, but the mindset of the prison and the whole prison environment, and hopefully elevating like everybody involved in this system.
Yeah, absolutely. Shifting the energy.
Yes.
Because obviously we can see now at this point in U.S. history that the focus on punishment has not worked.
It's not successful.
No.
It continues to not work.
It continues to not work. And looking at it from a different point of view, we can look at it from an economic point of view, because not only is implementing rehabilitation for inmates beneficial to them as people, it's beneficial to the community, because we're not having reoffenders. We're getting people rehabbed while in prison. They're re-entering society, hopefully with the ability to adapt and contribute and cause less harm. But we also can look at it economically. So it's cheaper in the long run to provide education and skills training compared to reincarcerations. For every dollar spent on prison education, we save $4 to $5 in reincarceration rates. So the direct cost of providing education to an inmate is estimated to be around $1,400 to $1,700 per inmate, whereas reincarceration costs per inmate is around $8,700 to around $10,000. And so if you compare the number of, we'll say around $2,000 compared to $10,000, if we're beginning to invest in rehabilitation, economically it's also going to benefit us in the long run, because then we're not having reoffender after reoffender. So we're investing to not only better people, we're also trying to invest to better our community and to save the community time and money in the long run.
Right.
Which are also some things that prison officials could think about.
Yeah, it feels like it's all positives at this point. Like there's no like negative side of making everyone feel better.
Yes.
Saving money, dealing with the overpopulation of dogs in kill shelters, which is a big issue, and just the continuation of education throughout the prison system. All positives.
Yeah. At this point, it's just people taking the time, which it's a scarcity, I guess, throughout everybody. It's taking the time to reevaluate the systems that have been in place for so long, and not many people like to change anything. They like to stick with where it's at, but I think it's just a matter of taking the time to look at these facts and actually make the change.
That's a really great point, and that brings us back to Amy and Steve, the founders of the Dogs Prison Program, and we need people like them who are, coming up with these innovative ideas, but then also implementing them and sticking with them,
Right.
and putting in the work. And I mean, they work so hard. They are managing the program, and they are really advocating for not only the dogs but the inmates and getting them involved and approaching prison officials and saying, look, these are the benefits of working with us and implementing a program like this. And as somebody who has adopted from Dogs Prison Program, I mean, you could tell immensely that our dog was, these dogs go through hardships, right? They're rescue dogs. So a lot of the time they were facing abuse, neglect. They were abandoned. But when we adopted my dog from this program, you can just tell that while in the program, he was so loved, so cared for, so well trained. It's really just amazing to see. And like my family and multiple other families that we know and that I've spoken to, both personally and through researching with this program, have had the same exact experiences where you can tell that the inmates who train and care for these dogs truly are putting in the effort, and that this program is truly giving back to the community and giving them the skills needed. And so I'm here today to advocate for implementing dogs in more prisons, but also advocating for just overall rehabilitation for the inmates, because the United States clearly is facing a mass incarceration crisis. Recidivism rates are high, and like we've been talking about, change isn't always the easiest, but we need more people like Steve and Amy to get out there and push for it and to create some real change. So, okay, well, thank you guys so much for being here, and
thank you, that was great.
Yeah, thank you.
Check out Dogs Prison Program.
Thank you, Faith, for discussing this topic. Let's continue to carry this conversation forward and spread awareness about prison rehabilitation programs. Stay connected, stay active, and keep showing up. The roundtables are on our YouTube and SoundCloud, and we are broadcasted on the first and third Sundays of each month from 7 to 8 a.m. on G-Town Radio 92.5 FM WGGT. Thanks for listening, and have a great day.